Have you ever found yourself in a conversation with somebody and you struggle to understand where they're coming from? What is it that they're trying to say to you? Perhaps you're a principal and you have a teacher who you're having a disagreement with, or perhaps a person with a spouse, or a parent with their child, or even a teacher with their student. What are they saying? What are they thinking? They're so obviously wrong, and you want to understand where they're coming from. How can you do that? I believe in this week's Parshas Shmos, we'll be able to find a 3-step process that will help us understand the perception and the ideas of somebody else. In Parshas Shmos, we find the famous story where Moshe Rabbeinu, who is then a shepherd and is taking his flock out to graze. As he is walking, he sees a burning bush. And there we find interesting set of psukim, and perhaps an insight or a direction for us to be able to understand things we don't naturally understand. The pasuk says, "Vayomer Moshe, asur no ve'era." Let me turn aside and I will see what is this miraculous sight, what is this unusual sight, a burning bush that's not being consumed. All of them are bothered by this contradiction, asur no ve'era. Let me turn away and I will see. When you turn away, you see less. Normally you need to turn to something. But the word asur no means I turn away. That is one question. And then Hashem calls out to him and he tells him, Shal no me'arel lecho. Take your shoes off of your feet. Because the place that you are standing is a holy place. What is this need for Moshe Rabbeinu to remove his shoes? I believe we will be able to understand from these 3 steps. First, turning away to see, and then being able to remove your shoes to also understand, is a prescription or directions for us to be able to understand things that we don't naturally see. Just like Moshe Rabbeinu was going to understand and see something that didn't make sense. The first step, asur no ve'era, let me turn away so I can see, is understanding that what I will naturally seeing is going to be wrong. I have to recognize that based upon my level of perception and based upon the glasses that I'm wearing right now, I am not going to be able to understand somebody else. Or like Moshe Rabbeinu saw, I'm not going to be able to understand what I'm seeing if I just try and understand it with my current perception. Rosh Hashiva Leibach Tzal used to say that if today somebody would have seen a burning bush and they wouldn't have been on the Madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu, they would probably say, oh wow, what an amazing way to make money. This is going to be a new form of fuel, a burning bush that's never consumed, or something along those lines. And we all know that in our day-to-day lives, there are things that happen when Hashem does for us, and we say, oh, it's chance, or it's just luck, it's just mazel, and we don't see the Yad Hashem. So the first step is, asur no, I need to turn away from my natural response, and I therefore will leave myself open to see something else. So a person has to asur no, I have to turn away from my regular thinking, and be aware that it is going to be clouded or it's going to be changed based upon my perceptions in order to see what's really there. Once we're willing to recognize that my natural perception is wrong, we are then open to see something new, or when dealing with a colleague or a friend or another person, we'll be able to hear what they are really trying to say. But then there are 2 more steps. When a person is now recognizing that there is a limitation in his perception, you have to be able to then shal nalecha miraglecha. You have to remove what your idea is, what you want, what you're trying to accomplish. What is the message you're trying to give over? That is something you have to put aside. Just like Hashem was telling Moshe Rabbeinu, shal nalecha miraglecha, take off your shoes, take off your physical clothing that's limiting your perception in order to see ki admas kodeshu, to see that the land that you're standing on, that the world that Hashem created is kodesh. There's something here that's not physical. There's something here deeper than the physicality that we see, and that there is kedusha here. There's spiritual holiness. So too when we're talking to a friend, or a colleague, a peer, or perhaps a student, we have to first take away our ideas of what we want to accomplish. Very often, as a parent or as a teacher, we want the child to listen to us. We want them to comply with our needs, and what's in front of our minds is our needs. So first we need to shal nalecha mi'arglecha. We need to remove our needs from the picture and say, I am no longer going to be thinking right now about what I want to accomplish. I want to hear what you have to say. And that process doesn't always happen right away. How long do you have to keep working at that? Then the pasuk tells us, Ki admas kodesh. You have to do that until you can hear their side. You can see that they are a neshama tahira. They have a rational reason for what they're saying. They have a perception that's true, that's kadosh, that's real. I'm not saying I have to agree with it. I'm saying that is necessarily the correct thing to do in this point. But every person is a rational human being that has a reason why they're thinking what they're thinking and doing what they're doing. They are kadosh, they are neshama kedosha. And therefore, I need to keep asking and listening and removing my perception and my needs until I can understand them. Once I recognize that I can understand them and what they're saying makes sense, then we can then have an ability to understand them. We can then have a conversation afterwards that will be much more direct to what they're saying, and we can come to a conclusion that's mutually agreeable. But until I hear what they're saying, then I'm not going to be responding to what they're saying. I'm just going to be responding to what I'm thinking, and we're not having a conversation. A story is told of the Mittel Rebbe, of Dov Be'er Lubavitch, that one day, after many hours of seeing Chassidim, he was exhausted. And the Gabbai walked in and he said to him, Rebbe, I don't understand, why are you so tired? Clearly the Gabbai was thinking to himself, what does the Rebbe do afterwards? He's just sitting here the whole day, listening and talking, but he's not exerting himself. He's not doing anything that should make him so exhausted. So the Rebbe said to me, he said, listen, when a chassid comes into me, or when people come into me and they tell me their problems, in order for me to understand them, I first need to remove my clothing. I need to be able to take off my feelings and perceptions and put on his clothing and understand what he's experiencing. And when I'm able to feel his pain and his difficulty, then I think about lifting myself up. How can I find a way in myself, and when I would have this experience, how I would lift myself up. And then I have to remove his clothing, put back on my clothing, and think about how I can help him understand now, with my new understanding, through understanding him and his difficulties, and a way to lift myself up, how I can share that with him. And therefore, it's exhausting. And I do that day in and day out. And I do that for hours at a time. It is indeed exhausting. So too, we can understand the ability to take off our clothes or take off our shoes and to be able to listen to somebody else does take a tremendous amount of effort. But that effort is worth it. Following this three-step process, I hope that we will be able to have better conversations with our peers, our colleagues, our spouses, or our children, and to be able to hear them, understand them, and then be able to respond and have a mutually productive conversation that will come to a mutually agreeable solution. With that, I wish you much azocha to have positive communications with your peers, your colleagues, spouses, and children, or whoever that may be, and you'll be able to hear them, and hopefully they will then be able to hear you. Hatzlacha Rabbah.